know, of all the times that we end up hearing Lenin's Imagine, God gets overlooked, and of course I like it actually, I think, better overall. How you doing? I'm Matt Dillahunty. Joining me this week, Tracie Harris.
Hey.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
This is live. This is the Atheist Experience. It's a live public access television show out of Austin, Texas, and you can watch it over the interwebs. We are streaming the program live now, and the information, they'll have it up on your screen here in just a moment. It's at ustream.tv, and also the audio portion is available as a downloadable podcast, download and a podcast, and the entire program is uploaded to Google Video, and you can watch them all. If you go to our website, there's the website for the stream. If we go back, I'm going to move my arms out of the way, and we'll probably need to change the lower third so that it's just dark there, whatever. So if you go to our website, www.atheist-experience.com, that's the main site for this television program. You can find a link there to the archive where we have all the old shows up there. You can also find a link to the fan page where people have taken YouTube clips and portions of this show out and posted it up on the internet. And there's also a link there where you can watch it live. That goes to the Ustream link that was up there before. We are sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. The ACA has weekly meetings at Romeo's on Barton Springs Road every Sunday beginning at 11:30. The address for the web address for the Atheist Community of Austin is on your screen now. It's www.atheist-community.org. You can go there and find out more about the organization, how to join, information about the group, what we're doing, and information about schedules coming up after the holidays, some special events that I'll talk about as well. As I mentioned, it's a live call-in program. We'll have the number for you shortly. We are taking calls from outside of Austin just because we can't stop it, and we like hearing from everybody. For those of you who are mostly calling in to thank us for doing the show or telling us how much you appreciate it, that's great. We're not going to block calls, but you know, we don't want this to be the happy atheists patting themselves in the back hour or hour and a half. And so we're going to at least keep one line open for callers who happen to disagree or want to have a discussion about an issue. And that doesn't mean that necessarily it's open for theists. If there's an atheist who happens to disagree and wants to discuss an issue, we're open for that too. The main purposes of the program are to expose the public to who atheists are, what we believe, what we don't believe, kind of eliminate some of the misconceptions that people have, to discuss issues, philosophical, religious, on occasion, political, especially where politics and religion collide. And as I mentioned, we'll have the number up for you shortly. That takes care of the caller guidelines. In addition to this program, the ACA also sponsors a bi-weekly internet audio podcast called The Nonprofits. That's PROPHETS. And you can find out more information at nonprofitsradio.com. We were live yesterday for the final show 2008, and it was a special show because it was Dennis Lubay, myself, Russell Glasser, and Jeff D. joining us after an absence that was far too long. And I'll have more about Jeff in just a moment. Nonprofits will return for the 2009 season beginning January 10th. And when I say season, it's weird because we put this, the Atheist Experience is on every Sunday that the studio will allow us to. I don't exactly know how many episodes we did this past year, but 52 weeks, I'd say there were 45 at a minimum. The Nonprofits, by putting out a show every other week, doesn't quite do as many shows, but you know, we still beat out the record of most television shows. And yesterday's was a long show. It was at or nearly 2 hours. We'll be back January 10th with that. Next week, I won't be here. I'll be out of town, but that's okay because it's not my week to host anyway. Russell and I have set up a 4-week host rotation where I'll host for 3 weeks, and Russell will come in and host for the 4th week, which gives me some time off to work on other things. In this case, I'll be out of town visiting relatives and family for the Christmas holidays. And so if anybody wants to talk about war on Christmas or thoughts on Christmas, you're welcome to call in and talk about that as well. The ACA hosts a number of events in addition to the 2 programs I mentioned and the Sunday morning brunch. On the first Sunday of the month, we don't do the brunch. We have a lecture at the Austin History Center located at the corner of 9th and Guadalupe. I don't have information about the January lecture. There may not actually be one scheduled yet, but as soon as we find out, it'll be posted on the website as well. The second Sunday of the month is a board meeting. And I mention this because today was the board meeting, and I forgot to go. I'm sorry. It completely slipped my mind. I'm a terrible president. Feel free to impeach me. And also on Thursdays every week we have a happy hour at the Dog and Duck Pub at 17th and Guadalupe. All of our events are open to the public. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to come and attend. You don't have to be a member. There's an ACA New Year's party that's taking place January 2nd. The information is available to members only. Those type of events are members only and members and guests. So there's more information at the website, and you can contact Mike Swift as well for more information about that event. And after this program is over, we get together for dinner, and we're currently going to Threadgills on Riverside. I'm sure the address will pop up. Before I finish saying the address will pop up, we'll be down, the show runs till 6 o'clock. We'll be down there around 6:30 or so, and that is also open to the public as well, as long as you're not coming down to preach, proselytize, provoke, punch, piss off, pester. I'm not going to go through all of the possible things you could do. But if you want to come down and have a discussion, it doesn't matter to us whether you're a theist, an agnostic, an atheist, whatever label you happen to choose for yourself. We're mostly down there to have a dinner and some conversation with other ACA members and people who are interested in what we're doing. But more than once we've had somebody come down and have a really productive conversation. What you may notice, for those of you who watch the show a lot and go back through the archives, is we get specific types of callers. I don't know why. I'm not in control of who calls. We barely do any screening apart from making sure that we, keep out the people who just want to hear themselves talk on television. And so on occasion we'll get emails. And by the way, you can email tv@atheist-community.org. Is that what's on the screen? They beat me to it. I can't see the whole screen, sorry. That goes to myself, most of the co-hosts, some of the people behind the scenes. We can't promise to answer all of them, but we do read all of them. And there have been emails coming in saying, well, why don't you debate some real, theist, a theologian, a responsible theist? Well, I don't know, find one for me. I don't decide who calls. And so there are people who don't live in Austin now who have seen clips of the show who are like, I want to debate you. Okay, fine. What kind of debate? Would you like to arrange a public formal debate? Because I'm open to that too. I've put out offers to, well, I guess I was going to say legitimate evangelists, but I mean, I don't know how many people consider Ray Comfort to be a legitimate evangelist. But nothing seems to come of it. I guess I'm this terrifying, imposing figure. But if you have, I don't know, some theologian living out of town, just let them know when the program's on, direct them to the website, they can watch. I'm not going to be giving out, you'll notice I never read out the telephone number. That's got to do with public access rules. And I also don't normally send out the telephone number in email. That's because that number goes to the studio and it applies to other shows, and I don't want people from our shows calling in to bother other people during their program. So what I'm advocating now is that people who want to call the show who aren't in town should tune into the live internet stream at ustream.tv, and that way you can watch and participate along just as if you lived here in Austin. You'll see the number pop up on the screen. You'll be able to call in. We can have a conversation then about whatever you want. And there's the address one more time for that as well. Oh boy.
Do you want to do it?
You want to start? Yeah. We're going to start by taking calls, but we're not going to take calls straight through because Tracie's got some interesting stuff to talk about, and I want to make sure we at least hit on that. But we've got, is it Miles?
Yeah, hello.
How are you, Miles?
Good, man. How are you doing?
Good. You're calling from Hattiesburg, Mississippi?
I am, yes.
What's the weather like?
It's not too bad, actually. It was kind of miserable. It snowed here the other day. I'm originally from Syracuse, New York, and I didn't think that it actually snowed this far south. But okay, well, I have an issue I've been grappling with for a little bit, and I was hoping, I really respect your opinion. I was hoping you guys could maybe help shed some light on it. I've been atheist for as long as I can remember. And since my morals are essentially not dictated by Scripture, I find that on a day-to-day basis, ultimately what's dictating my sense of morality is anything that I can do that increases the happiness and decreases the suffering of other sentient beings, much in the way that Sam Harris describes in his book. That's basically what's kind of defining my morality. Mm-hmm. For me, I don't think there's anything that's more visceral or fundamental to the human condition than that. I mean, that's my personal feeling. With that in mind, I followed that notion to its logical conclusion several years back, and I became vegan. Mm-hmm. I understand, and I have to preface this and qualify it up front. I understand that atheism is not equivocal to veganism, but I'm really having this hard time of escaping the notion that the two make pretty good bedfellows. Now, the question I had for you, I mean, I'm going under a couple assumptions. One is that you would also roughly subscribe to my notion of morality in some sense, and two, that you are not vegan.
Not vegan.
Are you talking to me, Tracie, both of us, or what?
Both.
You want to go first? You want me to go first? Or?
Yeah, I was vegetarian for several years in college for basically the same reasons you're describing.
Yeah.
At the time, I wasn't a Christian, but I was a theist. And in my mind, part of what drove that decision was that I felt that it was not natural for human beings to be eating meat.
Yep.
But I'll never forget this video that I saw of chimpanzees hunting down and killing and eating a monkey live, which changed my view of primate diet in a huge way. People have a odd situation where we domesticate animals. Most animals that are capable of predatory acts have a group rule about not eating one another. They survive from the group interaction, like a pack of wild dogs, obviously, if they ate each other, would not survive. So in general, they will work together to kill other things outside of their group to eat those things, and they don't compromise their group unless there's a strange situation or an anomaly. So we have generally an idea of an us-them species mentality that is generally naturally applied to most species, where a group of animals sees itself as us. And like even when you have herd animals that are not predatory, they will come around and sometimes protect a young one, like try to kick a predator and get it away from a baby. So they understand there's an us and there's a them. And what happens with people, I think, is that we have animals like pets, and then we extend that us and them to include, for example, our pets. And we say they're part of our family. And I believe that with people what happens is that line blurs more and more. And perhaps, like you're describing, we might think about it more and more and come to the conclusion that there really is, that the line between us and them is very arbitrary. And all I can say is that it comes down to a personal decision at that point about what is us and what is them, and what you'd be willing to eat and what you wouldn't be willing to eat.
And I'll kind of extend this just a little bit by pointing out that Jainists, for example, are so cautionary about doing harm to any other living thing that they're known to wear gauze masks and stuff so they don't inhale and kill a fly or an insect of some kind. Yeah, it does kind of come down to where you decide to draw the line, because even for ethical vegans, I know plenty of ethical vegans who would have no problem at all, swatting a fly, squishing a bug, and yet these are still alive as well.
Right.
I think in general, from a moral position, we're kind of in the same boat. I have obviously slightly different views, because you're right. I'm not a vegan. I'm an omnivore, and I am biased toward my species, and I draw an arbitrary line there, and I draw other arbitrary lines. First of all, I'm not in favor of animal cruelty, and people will say, well, if you're not for animal cruelty, then you should be a vegan, because it's cruel to kill an animal. Well, yes, but I think that there's a humane, responsible way to do it. If you want to say I should be on board with making changes to the meat farming and manufacturing industry, I'm on board with that. I'm in favor of making changes, but I also recognize that there's practical realities. I don't extend the same moral rights to non-humans that I extend to humans, and I think that is I don't want to call it a fallacy, but it's a difference in the philosophical position between ethical vegans and those who aren't, yet maintain some of the same ethical principles. And the core of this is that you're right. It would be nice if we never did harm to another living thing, and therefore we should probably not eat meat. But it would also be nice if we extended a lot of other human rights to other animals as well. And that follows logically from the same path that I think you've started with, but it doesn't really make sense to me in any kind of practical way at all. I'm fine with recognizing that there is a difference between humans and non-humans, and I'm fine with being biased toward my species. And what I am willing to do, though, is afford the same rights to eat me to the animals that I eat. When a shark decides to attack me because it's hungry and wants some food, I'm not going to say that it's immoral or unethical of the shark. It's the natural way that sharks are. I realize that to most ethical vegans that is a lame cop-out, but I'm fine with it actually. And I've had lots of discussions. You're not the first person to call in to ask or even write in an email to ask, why aren't you a vegan? If you're an atheist, why aren't you a vegan? And I'm glad you pointed out that one has nothing to do with the other, because that was going to be my first response. Yeah. Based on that that there's no. I mean, you could be an atheist and
well, you could be an atheist and be Joseph Stalin. Yeah, I mean, I understand that. Yeah. Getting back to, what you said, like a shark attacks you, that's a natural order. But I mean, a shark, by necessity, has to be a carnivore. It has to eat meat. And I guess with humans, we don't have to eat the meat. So
let me ask you this, and this question actually comes from Russell. He raised it last night at a party. Okay. You're familiar with Star Trek, right?
Vaguely.
So let's say that we develop a future technology where we are able to molecularly synthesize meat. No animal had to die, but it's now meat. Are you okay eating that now?
No, I'm not.
Why not?
Because I feel that the health benefits of not eating meat far outweigh the benefits of eating it.
And see, I feel the exact opposite. I feel that the health benefits of eating meat far outweigh the benefits of not eating meat. I also recognize that we're all speaking from an extremely spoiled, privileged position. Whether or not this idea that you have access to all of these wonderful foods from all over the place because you live in the wealthiest country in the world, and we're in a privileged position as a superpower, you have access to all kinds of things. There are people for whom ethics don't even enter into it. It is essentially a necessity that they continue to eat meat because that's what's available. And by the way, there are plenty of people starving, meat or not. And my only response is that if we're going to prioritize things, creating a world where we're not killing animals for food isn't really on my priority list.
Okay, but for me, it goes back to the whole might doesn't make right. I don't think that we should eat the animals just because we can. But that's not what I said. That's not what I'm advocating. I'm not saying because we can do it, we should. Okay, I guess we'll just say that again then. What are you saying?
I'm not claiming might makes right. I'm not claiming that it's ethically right or an ethical obligation or duty, or that because I can go, kill a chicken and cook it that I should. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that in my case, my position is the default position for me is that I'm going to eat meat until somebody can demonstrate a reason why I shouldn't. It's not a might makes right. This is the default. It's the people who claim that I have an ethical burden to not eat meat that have the case to make.
Okay, well, I guess the reasons why you shouldn't eat meat, there's several. The environmental reasons are overwhelming.
Really? Like what? Because, when we send people out to hunt and kill for sport in order to reduce animal populations, in order to protect an ecosystem, might as well eat those. Is it unethical to eat roadkill? I realize it's probably unhealthy, but...
Well, why is the roadkill there to begin with? It's because we impinged on the animal's environment and we ran them over.
All right, is it unethical to eat an animal that dies of natural causes?
No, it's not unethical, but again, this goes back to my argument that
No, it doesn't go back to your argument. The key there is, as soon as you say that it's not unethical to eat an animal that died of natural causes, now you've entered into a slightly different area, because now you're saying that it's not the consumption of animals that is unethical, but the method by which you go about acquiring the animals that's unethical. And I'm already on board with changes in that area.
Correct, but you asked that you wanted to know why shouldn't you eat the meat. And my stance is that it is unhealthy. I mean, if you look on the American Heart Association's website, they have numerous instances where they list that diets that contain meat are more unhealthy than plant-based diets.
I simply don't believe it remotely, and I can answer it with one word: evolution. We evolved as an omnivorous species. Our diet, just the fact that you can supplement for meat, that you can take vitamins to make up for what you're not getting in meat, or you may be able to find specific vegetables and nuts and things that can provide you with those. That is, as I mentioned, part of living in a spoiled society. If you were living, hundreds of years ago, or perhaps less, or in some other area of the world now, you wouldn't have the option to have a properly healthy diet that doesn't include meat. But also, there's the problem that just because you can eliminate meat or reasonably substitute the nutritional value that you get from meat doesn't mean that you necessarily should, or that it's equivalent or better. But
can I ask you something, Miles?
Sure.
Have you ever seen a great white shark devour a seal?
Of course.
How do you feel when you see that?
I feel that is the natural way, because sharks eat seals. Sharks require seals. There's a high fat content in the seals.
Wait a minute. Just a second. No, how does it make you feel to watch that?
Indifference, I suppose.
So
see, I actually cringe.
I get disturbed by it. I can't watch things like that. For example, if that happens to come on television, as much as I like to see tigers and lions, if there's a documentary, if it's going into the hunt, I will tell my husband, change the channel, because I am not going to watch killing for entertainment. To me, the idea of the suffering is what pains me. Like, I sympathize with the animal that is being killed as a painful experience and a disturbing and stressful and frightening experience for that animal. I, however, cannot say that I think the shark is wrong to do it. I can only say that I know he's causing a lot of suffering to that seal, and yet I have to admit that it would be irrational for me to call it immoral. When it comes to myself, I, for example, purchase cage-free, farm-raised, hormone-free, chicken. I won't eat beef because I don't feel like we've perfected a humane way to kill beef. I won't eat anything that's boiled alive. There's certain things that for me I say, that's just over the top, too much. I can't take that. Now, but that's that's what I can personally deal with or not deal with. And everybody has a different level of that.
And actually, because we got full calls and we want to get to Tracy stuff, I'm gonna cut this short. But I do want to say that I'm not indifferent to your position or your argument. I don't think that ethical vegans are out on a crazy limb, and I don't think that they're bad people. I just don't happen to share that particular view, and I don't necessarily consider myself unethical for not sharing it.
Okay. Fair enough.
So, thanks, Miles. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. No problem.
You want to?
No, let's go ahead.
Okay, we're going to keep going. Is this Troels from Denmark?
Yes, it is.
How are you?
Very good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for calling.
No problem. How's the weather over there?
How's the world?
Nice today.
The weather is beautiful today. I actually had to wear a short sleeve shirt and turn the air conditioning back on.
Oh man, you're lucky. It's damn cold out over here.
So what did you call in about?
Well, I have two quick things that I would just want to praise you guys for, and then a larger third thing. Matt, a few weeks ago you talked about the gay adoption thing in Arkansas,
yes.
And you said like that children don't care about who their parents are as long as they are loved and have a good home.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say you're absolutely correct on that, man. I happen to be adopted from Sri Lanka, and that saved me from a bloody civil war.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I know a lot of people really appreciated the comments that were made on that by myself and by other people as well. That was what happened in Arkansas was terrible. But anyway, you had more.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. I have I guess it was only two things, but okay, this is a larger thing. First of all, I'm going to say that you made a point a number of times about that the effect of a label of a group has, like Christian, Muslim, Jew have, and I think that principle though is a little different when it comes to politics, because political ideology is a more clearly defined than ideology, where something overall like conservative, liberal, socialist, etc., just generally enumerates things that those you could call it sub-ideologies have in common.
Mm-hmm.
Because and also on episode 578, you expressed criticism of some politicians that use the word atheism and godless as dirty words. And of course, I agree that is of course ridiculous, because there's nothing to be ashamed of being an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to apologize about beating a semi-dead horse. But I noticed that nobody has seemed to come at this issue from my angle, and on several past shows, including Russell's Foolish Atheist show, the word socialist and communist were thrown around and both directly equated with the Soviet Union, which I consider to be an evil Stalinist regime that murdered millions and millions of people.
Yeah.
And a few past callers have also used the word socialism as a directly derogatory term. Now, I happen to be a socialist, but that doesn't make me positive about the Soviet Union at all.
Yeah.
In fact, I share much of you guys' criticism of the idea of outlawing, oppressing, or persecuting religion.
I think I can actually correct this to your satisfaction right now. I'd have to go back and watch the actual discussions.
Well, it was not really, sorry to interrupt, but it was not only Russell's show on food, there were also some callers and other shows.
Right, that's why I'm not going to be able to go back and review all of them, or who said it or in what context. A lot of times this comes up where they're trying to attack atheists because of what some other atheist has done, and then you end up with the whole socialism and communism as a bad word, a label. If I've used it that way in a general sense, then I freely apologize, because that's not my intent. And on several occasions, at least in email and or on the nonprofits, I don't know if it's happened here, I've actually made a very similar point to what you're making right now. And during the last election, I had to make this point more than once, and that is, people would say that Obama is a socialist and that they couldn't possibly vote for a socialist. And I thought that was an oversimplification, because while you may consider socialism an invalid political position, or socio-political position in some cases, that doesn't mean that everything about it is wrong. And just because somebody has a position that may be consistent with a socialist view in one area doesn't mean that they are bringing all of socialism along, and it doesn't mean that necessarily the socialism is any kind of bad or evil thing. It's the application of socialism and communism as we've seen it in past regimes that have been terrible failures, and I am not expert enough to say whether that was due to the fact, or due to things that are intrinsically part of socialism and communism, or whether it was things that were added to them by those regimes. I can't make that assessment, but I wouldn't want to, blanket say that socialist equals evil or communist equals evil. I'd say they both equal failed ideologies, or at least poorly implemented ones to date. But yeah, if the impression is given that I would use it as a blanket label for something evil or whatever, then I wouldn't say that that's accurate for me anyway.
Well, that's I share that viewpoint, but also there's various regarding the Obama thing. I was also quite amused by the fact, because I have heard him say, quote, "I support capitalism," unquote, or something like that, and then people make him out to be a socialist, and I just had to laugh about that.
Yeah.
But it was also socialism the word has today sort of become like an umbrella term for many other, smaller things, where like you have like something like social democraticism or democratic socialism or something like that, and then on the far end you have like Stalinism, Maoism, and so forth. But personally, I believe that what was wrong with the Soviet Union was really the oppression, the dictatorship kind of thing. Was not. It had various good things about it, but it was also most terrible things. But personally, here in Denmark, we while we don't haven't had socialism like with a central planned economy, we have had socialism in the sense where we have high taxes, where then we have like complete public healthcare system, public education system. Even the universities here are tuitionless and those sorts of things. Very, very wide social security.
Yeah.
So it's.
Did you want to weigh in?
The only thing I wanted to note, it's just kind of funny, is that every time I have what I consider to be a good idea about a way to improve government or like national status, eventually I come to find out that, oh, that's a socialist idea. So I've made it like added to my book list marks because I have to read it in order to find out whether or not I'm a socialist, because I suspect that I might be.
Oh, watch out! You may
Exactly.
Yeah, and then I'll have to kick her off the show, because when callers call in to say you're just socialist, she'll have to say yeah. No. Thanks a lot for calling in, Troels. I appreciate the call, and as I said, yeah, I'm not going to be necessarily using socialism or communism as a dirty word, and I'll do my best in the future to clarify that we're talking about specific instances or regimes that fit within those labels. So, you know, we're
one last thing I just wanted to say to cement this issue. Here in Denmark, we have a party called Socialist People's Party, which I happen to be a member of, and I'm not trying to promote it in any sense, but just as a vehicle of explanation. At this year's party congress, there was a woman from the Tibetan government in exile gave a long speech about what happens in Tibet under the oppression of Beijing. And also, this party was founded in 1959, and it was founded because the founder was, who used to be the chairman of the Danish Communist Party, was thrown out of the Danish Communist Party because of his fierce opposition to the Soviet Union in general, but also especially after its intervention in the Hungarian Revolution of 1956. So, you know, socialists don't have to agree with oppression or anything. In fact, in Danish, we don't, when we refer to freedom of speech, we don't even say what means freedom of speech. Talefrihed, that means freedom of speech, but we generally say ytringsfrihed, which means freedom of expression.
Yeah.
Because to us, expressing yourself in writing or in a drawing, you may have heard about something in the last department.
Yes.
It's equally important.
Well, I appreciate the call, Troels, and we've stepped way outside of the realm of atheism right now, but I do appreciate it, and you know, I'll take steps in the future to try and make sure that I'm not painting with that big brush. I've had to do it in other areas too, on feminist issues, because I'm evidently a misogynist redneck at heart, and I've overlooked something on occasion. But
well, look at the Scandinavian countries. We've had several quote red governments. Norway has one right now, and maybe you judge for yourself.
Okay, thanks a lot. I appreciate the call.
No problem.
Keep going.
We got, yeah, all right, we'll keep going. Is it David in New Jersey?
Yes.
How you doing, David?
Hey, Matt. Hey, Tracie.
Hey.
Are you a socialist?
I was watching the O'Reilly Factor the other day, and he, like, every episode, he brings up the Washington sign, the atheist sign in Washington.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you could, like, comment on that, give your opinions on what he does in the actual sign itself.
I can't give my opinion on O'Reilly because I refuse to watch him. We talked a little bit about the sign yesterday on nonprofits.
I missed it.
And I don't want to, you can download it, I don't want to reiterate everything. I'll say this, and I also handled some email because I pointed out that I wasn't in complete agreement with the particular phrasing that the Freedom from Religion Foundation chose. I'm happy with the way things are turning out, and here's why. And for those of you who don't know, here's the brief synopsis of what's happened to date as far as I know. A nativity scene was put up in the Capitol building in Olympia, Washington. The Freedom from Religion Foundation posted an atheist plaque alongside of it as a private organization. They got the proper permits, they put it up, the governor approved it. There's this huge outcry because at the end of the plaque it says essentially that religions are nothing more than myth and superstition, that poison minds and shackle minds and harden hearts type thing. I'm sorry, I got distracted by something over there. There was a huge outcry over this, and this is where Bill O'Reilly and some others got started in their, this type of thing shouldn't be allowed, and I already ripped on Bill for that because he needs to go read the first frickin' amendment. The governor gave him an appropriate response to this after he flooded her office with calls, and she said, I don't happen to agree with the Freedom from Religion Foundation, but what I do agree, and I'm paraphrasing, is that they have the right to express their view the same as anybody else, and we can't allow a nativity scene and say, no, you can't express your atheist point of view. And so this opened the floodgates, which all of a sudden all sorts of anti-atheist messages started showing up there, little placards and posts and signs, and a few pro-Christian messages, and so you've got this little battle going on. And somebody's gotten permission to put up a Festivus poll, and I think there's going to be something with regard to the flying spaghetti monster. And then Fred Phelps in the Westboro Baptist Church, some of my favorite people on the planet, decided that they wanted to put up a sign saying that Santa Claus was going to take you to hell. And it was their way of not so subtly pointing out that we live in a Christian nation, and all of these hypocritical Christians who have forgotten the quote-unquote true reason for the season are damning the nation to hell, and it's Santa's fault that our soldiers are dying. I don't know if that's actually been posted, but I know that after the request came in, the governor's office, or actually the office that's responsible for what gets posted there, declared moratorium. We are accepting no more requests to post things until we review our policies, and we're hoping to do it very quickly. I love this. This is exactly what we needed. I wish that in every town, for example, down at our Capitol building, there's a holiday tree. A friend of mine who's an atheist helps set it up. I have no objection to it. I'm not offended by it. I'm not offended when people tell me Merry Christmas, etc. But the thing that some of us have managed to grasp, and this, by the way, this is nothing new. I'm not talking about the quote-unquote new atheists. The founders understood this, and there are quotes from Madison and others to this effect. The only rational, realistic application of church-state separation is to deny all of these. You can't possibly allow everybody. I mean, you have free access to come up and speak at the Capitol on all these public grounds, but you can't, if we allowed every group who had an opinion or view on some religious idea or another to put up a little placard, we would have an ugly Capitol building in every state. The lawn would be riddled with this. I mean, it's bad enough that we've already got this Ten Commandments monument that we can't get rid of, thanks to Justice Breyer, but this is what we need. Not only are we getting lots of discussion about it, I'm glad Bill O'Reilly's going off, and I'm glad he's talking about it on every single news cycle, because this needs to be brought up before legislatures around the country, what we need to do, and I really am not too concerned about how they rule. I'd like to think that, when we actually get into the discussion, people realize that as a practical matter, we just can't allow. We can't do this, and so we shouldn't allow any of them. We shouldn't allow anyone to post a permanent or long-term thing up, or we'll have to have specific restrictions. You can, book your day to stand on the Capitol steps, or book your day to put your thing up in this particular niche, and it's got to come down the next day and something else goes up. There are a number of solutions. Now, I think we're gonna. Is that new or old? I don't know. I think we're going to see some court battles out of this. I like the way it's going. But yeah, I can't tell you what Bill O'Reilly said.
Wait, hold on. Bill O'Reilly keeps saying Christmas is a national holiday. It's a national holiday. But Christmas, the birth of Christ Christmas, I don't get that. It's against the Constitution.
Well, yeah, they're using a little equivocation to misrepresent it. It's like when they say Christian nation, and they say, well, how can you say it's not? There's 80% of the population. Okay, fine. Then it's also a female nation. It's a white nation. I dare you to say that, Bill. It's a white female Christian nation run by old white men. Anyway, I want to get on to the other callers. Thanks a lot for calling in, David.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Is it Gerald? Hello?
Yeah, sure is.
Yeah, you had a question? You're from Austin, though, right?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
Yeah. My question is, I wanted to know, are you really an atheist? Like, you don't believe in any kind of God or any kind of religion whatsoever?
That's correct for both of us, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, both of you. Okay. Sorry, I'm not going to include her, the lady with you.
It's her turn to talk anyway.
Yeah, I can understand that. My question is, well, it's really not a question, but can you agree that basically all religions have definitely led this world to be a better place?
No, I can't agree to that. I will agree that the religious institutions have played an important role in the betterment of the world, but they've also hindered that as well. I mean, while they're responsible for some of the great institutions of learning, they're also responsible for hindering some of the learning that came out of those institutions. They're destroying the Library at Alexandria, or what they did to Galileo, things like that. And the church is continually struggling to retard scientific progress. So I'm not going to say they're all evil, that they've done no good. They've done good.
Well, the reason why I say it is whether there is a God or there isn't, they definitely, every day, keep millions of people from being murdered for no reasons, I guess.
Really?
Churches?
Yeah.
And what about all the people who are murdered in the name of religion?
Yeah.
And it goes both ways, though.
Yeah, it goes both ways. So
I think basically if you're a good person and you're religious, you're a good person. And if you're a bad person and you're religious, you're bad. And I throw those labels around, but really it's like if you're doing bad things and you're religious, it's because you're going to do bad things, not because you're religious. And if you're doing good things and you're religious, you'd be doing good things whether you were religious or not. But I guess I should correct that as well, because sometimes you get a good person who is driven to do bad things because of religion. But you rarely get a person who doesn't want to do good that's going to say, like, grudgingly do good because they have to because of their religion.
I think that religion or something like religion is required in order to get good people to do bad things. That's the only way you can get good people to do bad things. Intrinsically good, normal, healthy, happy people who would normally do good things and be productive, cooperative members of society. The only way you can get them to do evil is by religion or something that is equivalent to religion, some kind of
like
dogma.
A political ideology.
So any kind of fervent ideology. And the question is, if you agree that religion can go both ways, what good is it? We can go both ways without religion, so why not chuck out all the religious baggage? And by the way, I don't really care if it goes both ways. I care about whether or not it's true.
Hey, that made a point there. And it could, we will never know until we die. But wouldn't that suck, though, if you were wrong about being an atheist and you die and you really did go to hell?
Which hell? Whose hell? Which religion?
Yeah, what if I die, what if I'm a Christian and I die in Islam is correct?
Then, hey, whatever their religion is, that would suck. I mean, I'm sure it's pretty bad.
Yeah, and so
we're all pretty much screwed except
so everybody who got it wrong, whether they're an atheist, Scientologist, Muslim, Hindu, Jainist, or Christian, whoever got it wrong is screwed. And yet there's the possibility, here's the thing, is that every one of these religions have different beliefs. They can't all possibly be right, but they can all be wrong. And I'm in the position where I'd much rather live a life that is based on intellectual honesty, where I have no way of determining which of these religions are right. I see no reason to presume that any of them have managed to get it right. I have insufficient evidence to believe any of them, and therefore I'm going to live an honest life and say, no, I don't believe, and I'm not going to believe until I'm presented with evidence. And if I find myself in an afterlife and there is some kind of God there who says, that because I didn't believe, I'm going to be tormented, and I'm just going to say, okay, well then, why didn't you provide sufficient evidence for belief? Did you really create us with a mind that was capable of reasoning out the universe and then make yourself intentionally obscure such that you require leaps of faith that aren't supported by reason? Why on earth would you do that? Was it your goal to just reward the gullible and credulous and punish those people who actually rationally and sanely used intellect in order to assess the universe? I don't want to spend an eternity with a God like that because he's a prick.
That's pretty rude, man.
Yeah.
All right, so, okay, my sister-in-law, she wants atheist. How do you feel about gays, like gays and lesbians? Do atheists, those are bad people? I mean, from a scientific standpoint, because we were all
need more people. I mean, it can go with that as well, right? Spiritualism and
you're breaking up a little bit.
You're like fading in and out.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Can you sum up your question in a really short way so we can address it? Because you were fading in and out. I'm not quite sure I got it.
Okay. Do you think that atheists think that gay people are horrible people?
That gay people are bad?
Gay people are bad?
Yeah.
No. As a matter of fact, several of the members and co-hosts on this show are gay. The ACA supports equal rights. We're at the Pride Festival every year. I couldn't possibly hold the view that they're bad. Well, why on earth?
I guess I should point out, though, that that's not necessarily an atheist view.
It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with atheism, because it's not an ism.
My church definitely doesn't really think that that's appropriate, being gay or lesbian or whatever.
Yeah, you're still fading in and out. Am I understanding you correct? You're saying that your church thinks that it's inappropriate to be gay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and so by what standard do they claim that they're correct?
Because God made people to make children.
Sure. They've got a bald assertion that people were created a certain way. Do you agree with them that there's something wrong with homosexuality?
Well, I don't like hanging out with them personally, but I mean, I don't.
Well, I'm pretty sure they don't like hanging out with you either.
I don't think so. I hope not, because they're not going to get anything out of it. But
here's an idea. Because you're fading out, I'm going to move on to somebody else, and what I'm going to say is probably going to be viewed as mildly insulting to you, and so I'll apologize in advance. Instead of saying the church you go to believes that atheism that homosexuality is a bad thing, why don't you think for yourself? Why don't, instead of accepting whatever dogma there is or feeling uncomfortable about it, why don't you actually sit down and say, is this ethically or morally right or wrong? What do I think about it, and why? What's the real justification? And if the only justification you can come up with is because the Bible says so, or God says so, or somebody told you a God said, unless you actually get it from God directly, then I think you're relying on really bad reasons for this. Personally, I spent 20, 25 years as a fundamentalist Christian studying to be a preacher. I had to reevaluate all of my positions. This was the single most important thing I ever did, and not enough people ever bothered to do it. We believe whatever we're taught as kids, or whatever religion we adopt.
But if everybody in the world was gay, then this world would end in the next 50 years.
Really? Why?
There wouldn't be a human species. How would you be able to keep making babies? Artificial insemination?
Well, first of all, the argument carries no weight. I'll freely admit that you need to have, well, actually you don't need to have sex anymore to procreate. I know plenty of gay couples who have had kids. You could still have kids even without the sex or with sex. I mean, it's not like, you couldn't actually do it. But that's not the issue anyway. I mean, even if, let's say that everybody was gay beginning with this entire next generation, that still doesn't address whether or not it's ethically wrong. If that's what, I mean, we're talking about people's nature.
Man.
How is somebody's nature ethically or morally wrong?
It's gross.
That's like saying that they're wrong to be bald or brunette.
Well, there's nothing wrong with being bald or brunette, man.
There you go, and there's nothing wrong with being gay. I gotta let you go. We got other callers, but thanks for calling in, Gerald. Do yourself a favor. Actually, it's tough. Most people don't do it.
Well, the thing is, it's like, what if the entire next generation was women? Does that make it wrong to be a woman? We wouldn't have kids after a while, but I mean, it's not immoral to be female just because if everyone was female, we couldn't procreate.
Wow, it's silly. What if, I don't know, what if the entire next generation is born sterile? Does that make them immoral?
Well, that's the other question. Should sterile people be allowed to marry? If the only reason to...
Yeah, well, he didn't get into gay marriage, so I didn't want to beat up on the gay marriage issue there. That one gets bandied about enough. People past
childbearing years,
yes.
or
somebody who just chooses not to procreate, as I know a lot of people do. But seriously, I'm in all seriousness, Gerald, I'm not just picking on you. This message goes out to everybody, atheist or theist. I don't really care. Most people don't bother to take the time to figure out what they actually believe about different issues, and why.
I can't tell you how many times when I was younger and had discussions with peers that were religious, I would hear the phrase, "We believe that. We believe that."
Yeah.
And it would be like a blanket assertion, like everyone at my church believes this, as if it was just a group thing.
It's a hive mind.
Yeah, that's not how it works.
My preacher told me.
If you believe it, speak for yourself. Say, I believe this.
My preacher told me that Jesus is more historically verifiable than Julius Caesar. Okay. I got a bridge I'll sell you. We got, is it Alex in Tucson?
Yeah, hey Matt.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm just a little nervous because I'm a big fan of the show, and
well, thanks, but don't be nervous.
You personally converted me. Well,
don't be nervous, Tracie. What'd you say?
You personally converted me. Really, like watching the show.
Oh.
I was apathetic towards religion, and really, you watching the show.
I lit a fire under your ass then. I'm glad, and I'm really glad you decided to call in. And I don't be nervous because I couldn't possibly be mean now, and Tracie would hit me anyway.
Well, my argument is, I heard you say a little while ago that you would debate with these creationists, but I really disagree because, well, I've seen some other atheists debate them, and they don't bring out their core arguments. They bring out like some sort of. They don't. Well, let's say they don't preach what they say at a church. You know, what they say at their church.
Yeah.
So they're always going to say something very vague if you debate them. And like Richard Dawkins says, it really legitimizes them if you debate them.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that Dawkins and several others have pretty much agreed and said they're not going to debate creationists. However, they're in the position where they are scientists. And saying, I'm not going to bring your creationist ideas up to my level as a scientist. If I was going to be having a debate with somebody, I don't necessarily know that I would have a creation versus evolution debate because I'm probably not qualified enough to defend evolution. I would prefer debates that covered philosophical topics, religious things, the idea of God. Now, I'm not opposed to having a debate, and I'm fine with going against Dawkins here because I'm not representing science if I'm debating creationism at all. And actually, I wouldn't debate evolution. What I debate is the merits of creationism and the logical arguments and evidence for that. And then they would have the burden of proof to establish their claim, because I think that's the position they're in. But yeah, I agree. I'm generally not thrilled about scientists raising the creationist movement up to their level of debate because it just doesn't deserve to be there.
Yeah.
Oh, you still have that problem with them not expressing what they actually believe, but them expressing some sort of deist creation or deist God.
Yeah, you've got devout Christians arguing intelligent design.
They're disingenuous. Yeah, absolutely.
And by the way, that's maybe this is one of the reasons why I haven't had too many takers on debate. I would specifically set up a format where the structure is such that we would do our best to avoid that. You pick a topic and you go to it. And if they do that, then your only response is, congratulations, I just won the debate. It's like when Ray Comfort decided to go ahead and debate the Rationalist Response Squad, and he promised from the get-go that he would be able to demonstrate to anybody and everybody there that God was there without ever referencing the Bible. And inside of like 30 or 45 seconds, he was already referencing the Bible. Congratulations, Ray, you're a liar, and you've lost this debate. And not that we're going to actually take a vote. I mean, at the end, I'm more in favor of debate for the purpose of promoting discussion and thought with other people. It's not like if I go debate a creationist and at the end we do like this hand-raising thing and they all vote for him, I'm not going to care. I'm going to be more worried about the opinions of the other folks in the atheist community as to how well they thought I did as a representative of our ideas. The fact that perhaps they stacked the deck in the voting, it doesn't make any difference to me.
The other thing to mention, Alex, is that when you do like a public discussion, we've had people come to list where I know that like Matt will take discussions private and he'll have people that he discusses with privately, and I make it a point never to do that because I feel like for myself it's kind of a waste of time.
Yeah.
When I have a discussion, I usually will only have that discussion if there are other people observing the discussion. And part of my reason for doing that is that I feel that a lot of times there's somebody that I'm arguing with who I already know up front that I am going to have no impact on this person's position. the person is not interested in really examining the issue. They simply want to promote a belief. When I do that, the reason I will continue a discussion like that has nothing to do with the person I'm debating. It has to do with the person, and when I say debate, I'm talking informally online. It has to do with people that are observing that discussion.
It's the TV show.
Right, because
when I'm arguing with somebody like Gerald, I'm not necessarily trying to convince him. I'm trying to provide information to the other people who are sitting around watching this going, where do I fall?
Right, and I have seen people come in from the sidelines and say, you know, wow, the person you're talking to just looks like an absolute moron, and I'm embarrassed for my religion that, you know, they're making such stupid arguments. And so when I get that, when I see a Christian who's saying, you know, what you're saying makes sense, and this person that's defending my religion, they're not making a lot of sense, it makes me feel good that I know that there is someone else observing the conversation who is thinking about what's being said.
All right, that's a great point. Could I maybe ask you another question?
Sure.
Sure, shoot.
All right. What do you think about the possibility of us sort of becoming godlike creatures through our technology? I read this short story from the 50s called "The Last Question" by Isaac Asimov.
Yeah.
And I thought it was extremely interesting. What do you guys think?
Can I just just as a quick thing, if you took somebody that you know, lived a couple hundred years ago and showed them the remote control on your TV set, I think that would blow their mind. So as far as, you know, how far can technology go and how wild can it get with the results, and what would that mean? To a certain degree, you could say that it's already made people sort of godlike, depending on the perspective of the person looking at it.
There's some speculation within the transhumanist community and others about just how close we might be to something extremely profound and reality altering like that. This idea of a potential singularity within the next 50, 100 years, whatever, where medical technology and other stuff gets to the point where you may be able to, and then this is all going to sound science fiction, you know, download your brain into some type of body or that is where you can easily replace parts and essentially, for all practical purposes, live forever or as long as reasonably possible. I favor those kind of ideas. I'd like to live for just about as long as I possibly could. I mean, you know, there's always more to learn, more to do. You know, I'm in favor of it. I don't think I'd go investing in it right now, and I don't know that we're in any position to assess really how likely that is. But what we can do is take a look at how far we've come in a short period of time. Take a look at the life expectancy 150 years ago, the general quality of life, and what our knowledge level was 150 years ago and compare it to today. And also, if you map it out, you can see the trend. And it's not a linear growth trend. I won't go so far as to say it's, you know, exponential or logarithmic. But it's not. I don't know if it mirrors population or anything else, but there's great potential down the line for some really cool things that used to be science fiction that may affect how long we live, how much we know and understand, what we can do and influence, how we work at the atomic level, at the macro and micro levels. So. But
for me, it's like, even from a non-personal perspective, I just took a plane from here to Florida. I mean, I'm on something, I don't know how much that plane weighed, and I'm flying through the air going to Florida. And I'm thinking, I can't believe that somebody engineered a way to get something this heavy off the ground and then make it go how fast that thing went to get to Florida. And who would have believed that 200 years ago?
Or even further, when people call and ask about biblical prophecy and they you know, quote some nasty little passage out of Isaiah where they try to rewrite it to make it sound like the Bible knew that the earth was a sphere, when that's not necessarily what the passage says. And by the way, it wouldn't be that surprising if it was. You know, where's the prophecy that tells us about the germ theory of disease? Where's the prophecy that gives us real scientific insight? Where's the prophecy that says, you know, in the future there are going to be huge metal tubes flying around in the air? I mean, that would have been something that would have been absurd and beyond the grasp of the people that were writing these books.
But then we were going to go to the moon.
Why? Yes, and men will walk on the moon. And why is it that these revelations in prophecy don't seem to go beyond the scope of understanding of the
you can see
marauding band of barbarians who wrote the things.
Yeah.
But
I think, wasn't it Galileo was talking? I think he was talking about the rotations, but I mean, it's still spherical. It's like you see the shadow on the moon, and there it is. It's a curve.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see it.
But even, and I mentioned this before in a response. Alex, we're going to let you go. I appreciate the call because we got other people waiting. But thanks for calling, Alex.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks for taking my line.
Thank you.
I mentioned this in an email, that it was never surprising to me that somebody might describe the circle of the Earth. Because if you stand at the top of a mountain and look around, guess what? It's 360 degrees.
Right.
And from there, it's not very difficult. And I realized maybe I'm some mental giant to have come up with this while I was sitting around in my underwear answering email. But it seems to me that somebody in the ancient times wouldn't have had too much difficulty saying, you know what? I see the circle of the Earth while I'm standing here on this mountain. And oddly enough, when I move over to that mountain that appears to be at the edge of the circle, when I climb up to the top of it, I see a circle there.
Right. Not to mention they were navigating.
What way could we possibly put all these circles together to describe the shape of the planet that we live on?
But they were seafaring even back then.
Yeah.
I mean,
the mast disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah. It did take. I don't want to downplay the significance of what these people came up with. Any epiphany that I might have had is coming on the backs of centuries, millennia of mental giants, and I'm just, well, yeah, it seems obvious to me now. It wasn't always obvious to somebody, but it shouldn't surprise us, any of us, that at some point somebody managed to figure out that the Earth was round. It had to happen. And by the way, it doesn't matter if some old book, some guy got it right in an old book. It's completely useless information until it's verified scientifically. So it has to wait for the scientific discovery anyway. I mean, it's, silly, I think. We got, is it Norman?
Yes.
And you're in Austin?
Yes, I am.
How you doing, Norman?
Okay, pretty good. I got a little strange question for you.
Okay.
And I think actually you answered it on your last caller, but I'll throw it out there. I'm just very curious. In the book of Revelation, they believe, let's say, some type of end times, and they also believe when governments collapse or to buy or sell, to make things easier, people will be accepting some type of chip.
That is nowhere in the book of Revelation.
Okay.
What you're talking about is some apocalyptic end-time stuff that Schofield and others came up with as an interpretation of Revelation, but I'll let you run with it.
Oh, okay. And I'm probably 100% wrong on that, but I'm just curious.
It's what most evangelicals believe.
Oh, okay. Okay. My question, let's say people today, they're putting chips in their dogs and cats, in case they get lost or something like that. And God forbid, let's say, well, I won't say God forbid, but let's say there's another terrorist attack and the system breaks down, and a lot of Christians believe eventually to buy and sell things, you may be encoded. They may put a little chip in you to make life easier. Okay, instead of going to a bank with money, you'd have a little small chip inserted. You could just show, something in your body. As an atheist, I'm just curious, would you accept such a device in you to make your life easier? Now, this is being implanted in you so you could travel easier, do certain things. I mean, how do you feel about that?
I would answer that the question is completely unrelated to atheism. If you're asking me, would I do it, and then you're asking me, would I do it as an atheist? To me, the question doesn't even change. The reasons I would or wouldn't do that have nothing to do with my atheism.
Right, but a lot of Christians feel that's what the Christians look at it from a Christian viewpoint.
Yeah,
right.
Their objection would be related to their religion.
Right, but my acceptance or rejection of it would not be related to my atheism.
Right, so so I'm just curious, would you accept or reject it, just out of curiosity?
I have no inherent problem with it, although I realize that like any technology, something like that could be abused. For example, if we had a real negative governmental turn. But as far as, it seems like to me that there's a lot of helpful things that could come about for, first and foremost in my mind, missing children. So, yeah, I think that there's definitely benefits to something like that, but I can see that there could be issues with it as well.
Yeah, and personally, I'm in favor of it, and you could implant me tomorrow. However, what I won't do What I won't do is make any attempt to legislate my comfort with this onto anybody else.
Right.
I would only be willing to accept this if it was done on a voluntary basis.
Okay.
If it was made as a requirement, now I think perhaps we're overreaching. But yeah, you can implant me tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that way I won't have to worry. If I get knocked unconscious, my medical records will be instantly pulled up wherever I go. I don't have to worry if I left my wallet at home, my driver's license, credit card, all that's taken care of. So yeah, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. You answered my question.
Sure. Okay. Thanks, Norman.
Thanks.
We've got Steve in Orlando.
Hey, how you doing?
Great. How's your weather, Steve? Steven?
Oh, man, Tracie knows about this Florida weather, man. It's weird. The air is hot and the wind is cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there was a caller earlier who had spoken about, dang it, give me a second here. He was spoken about the derogatory use of certain words.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was one of those callers that he was referencing to. But in relation to that, somewhat, how do you feel about like people using the word believe willy-nilly, especially when dealing with something like evolution? Like people say, I believe in evolution instead of accepting it. Then, I mean, it feels at times like that's reinforcing that whole crap about it being a religion.
I think the two are synonymous. As a matter of fact, I define belief as acceptance of a proposition. So I have no problem with it at all.
All right, then.
Yeah, I mean, and actually, and I don't want to get into too much detail, and I don't want to just pimp myself out, but if you go to the ACA website, atheist-community.org, and go on the list of flagship things, there's a link there to the lectures. If you go back to my last lecture, which was on belief, there's at least, you don't have to watch the whole thing, but at the beginning of it, I give my definitions for the purposes of that lecture and what I use generally for belief, knowledge, and reality. I think that beliefs matter. I think that they inform our actions, and knowledge may actually be irrelevant depending on how you define knowledge. And so when somebody says, I see no difference between saying I accept the scientific theory of evolution or I believe that I believe that scientific evolution is valid, however they want to phrase it. Now, there is a usage for belief that is shorthand. It's kind of like faith has different meanings. It could mean your faith as in a specific faith, which is shorthand for a religion, or it could mean a trusting or reliance upon something just in general, or it could mean trusting or reliance on something in the absence of evidence to support it, or it could mean what I think it is, which is the excuse that people give when they don't have a good reason. And along those lines, there are probably usages of belief that I'm not too happy with, but it really didn't bother me on that
It's like that saying, seeing is believing. And I used to have a dividing line between using the term I believe it and I know it, and what I came to find is that they really are pretty much synonymous. And for me, seeing has become believing. If I don't see it, I tend to say, I'm not sure I believe it. I'll say it's likely, I might use the model, but as far as do I think this is true, usually I withhold that until something is demonstrable.
Yeah, it's like, and to touch on this just briefly, I mean, I believe your name is Stephen. And why? Because you said so and I'm willing to take you at your word, because it's not that big a deal. If I find evidence, and the other thing is that my belief that your name is Stephen is really flimsy. All it would take is some good evidence that you were lying or deceptive or whatever else to change it. And that's the thing about beliefs. And to me, this is exactly consistent with the scientific view. Science doesn't give us absolute answers. Science gives us explanations and models that are the best current explanation of the universe based on our current knowledge. And it's all tentative, and it's all subjected to revision as soon as we get better evidence. And I'm fine with saying that I believe some things loosely, and I believe some things very, very strongly. There are some things that while I don't have an absolute certainty of belief, I'm so certain that it would be absurd to think that they're wrong, and that's where I draw the line on what gets labeled knowledge. I know that the Earth orbits the Sun because it would be, the evidence is overwhelming to the point where it would be absurd to find out that it was the other way around.
Oh, okay. It's not a question of the actual science itself. Like, I'm fine with that. I was just it's semantics. I was just seeing how you felt about the usage of words. That's all.
Yeah, I got other words that I'd rather object to than that one, and some non-words too. Don't get me started on irregardless. I'd smack somebody.
I listen to those non-profits. I've heard you rant on that one.
All right, thanks for calling, Stephen. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Have a good show.
Bye-bye.
We got about 20 minutes left in the show or so. There's one more caller who's calling from London, so we're going to take it real quick, and then I don't know if you've got any time to hit on it. So
I can do it next time.
There's lines open. We can save this, whatever we don't get to. And there's probably a few things that we can actually rant on in the meantime. But I wanted to remind everybody we're going to Threadgills after the show's over because we haven't mentioned it apart from the regular announcements. We're on the air for another 17 and a half minutes or so. And then we'll be down at Threadgills around 6:30. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to join us. There's the address, 301 West Riverside Drive. It's downtown. Come down, have a good meal, talk to some people. I guess that's it for that. Is it Steve in London?
Hi, yeah, my name's Steve. I'm in England, not really London.
Oh, okay. Where in England?
In the Midwest, deepest, darkest Wiltshire.
I went to Stoke-on-Trent outside of Manchester when I was there. So.
No, I'm very sorry to hear that. Never mind.
I had a great time. What do you got for us?
Yeah, a bit early on you were alluding to the fact that in the Bible they talk about standing on top of the mountain and seeing that the world is round, and that's where it all comes from, and that not being proof of their insight into the actual shape of the globe. Of course, the writers at the time, the Bronze Age or early Iron Age, I suppose, were probably unaware that the ancient Greeks had already estimated the size of the globe, which they'd worked out that it was a sphere, and had actually come to the conclusion that what it was and how big it was.
That was Aristophanes. Do you have a date?
I'm afraid I don't know.
Okay, and that's why I didn't say that they were necessarily behind the Greeks, because when we're trying to date the Old Testament writings, I mean, the oldest copies we have are about 200 BC, but it could be, estimates could have been that the originals were written, 2000 BC or perhaps earlier. And, well, if you listen to a fundamentalist Christian who thinks the world's 6,000 to 10,000 years old, they could probably tell you the exact date that Isaiah was written. I can't do that. But I couldn't remember what year I think it's Aristophanes, calculated the circumference of the globe. So I didn't want to make that statement that they're lagging behind.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, we can assert, I think, though, that it's likely that when the scriptures, shall we call them, were actually committed in later forms to paper, or papyrus, or whatever,
right,
that there would have been some cognizance of what the Greeks had been up to, and, maybe it was already logged in the library Alexander by that time.
And I would think so. And the thing that I think is most telling about this, it touches on the point you made, is that I think it's clear that they didn't have any comprehension of what the Greeks were up to, because you've got one passage, just one little brief thing where the earth is referred to as a circle. And in every other area, it's referred to as flat with four corners, hoisted on pillars, fixed, immovable in space, with a firmament dome in which God sits above it and has planted the stars. And the entire concept that with the earth revolving around, the sun revolving around the earth, that they could stop it or make it move backwards. Or everything about their cosmology was just wrong.
You know what else could be a possibility is perhaps one author knew about the idea that it was round and other authors did not.
Yeah, that's possible as well.
I mean, it's different authors. It's not the same book.
And since we have no idea who any of the authors were and we can't ask them.
But at this stage, do you not then come to question, okay, so maybe they did, maybe they didn't. What were they trying to achieve and what were they writing? And my view is that what they were trying to achieve was a level of, shall we say, indoctrinal control by this worldly wiseness, this false worldly wiseness that they were purporting in their writings, which actually at the time might have been very necessary. I'm not saying that it was a bad thing as such, but I do feel that it's by this time in our lives, in the development of the human race and society, is a little out of date.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the call, Steve. Thanks for clearing that up for us. How's the weather where you are?
Not nice.
Not nice. And
it didn't rain here.
And while I did enjoy my stay in the UK, I'm happy to be in Texas today.
Yes, indeed. I wish I were with you. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Feel free to come over anytime. I appreciate the call. If you do make it to Austin, by the way, this goes for anybody, because we've had guests come down from Canada and New York for special events like our Bat Cruise or anything else. If you're going to be in the Austin area, by the way, there's chairs we can actually set up in here for people who want to stop by the studio and watch it live. You can come to any one of the ACA events. You can drop us an email. You can hit my Facebook page. There's also a Facebook page for the ACA and for the TV show.
Most of the hosts.
Yeah. And everybody else involved in the shows.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can also email tv@atheist-community.org. As I mentioned, we can't possibly answer all of those. But we're really trying.
We do try. We do a good job.
We do. I mean, occasionally something's going to slip through the crack, or occasionally somebody's going to write with something that I just finished answering 3 times in a row before, and I'll just kind of tuck it away. But I've come up with a couple canned responses, like the Zeitgeist response and the history.
And that got a lot of requests.
The thing is that I'm not really, I mean, Russell posted on the blog, on the Atheist Experience blog. By the way, you can go to atheistexperience.blogspot.com. That's Martin's blog, but most of the people involved in the Atheist Experience actually participate there. Russell posted it there. I'm not too happy with it because they don't actually give details. I basically just state my opinion about Zeitgeist without backing it up with stuff. Russell did a good thing when he posted it, which was to provide links to information that actually counters that as well. We've got, is it Amanda?
Yep.
Yeah.
From Newark, Delaware?
Yes, I am. Hey, guys.
Hey.
How is the weather where you are?
Oh, it's kind of crappy. It's not really nice out. A little cold. So I love your show, and especially Matt, I'd like to thank you for helping me in the process of deconversion, if you will.
Well, thank you, and you're very welcome.
I am actually calling because, like a lot of us, I would assume I kind of got a little bit obsessed with the movie Jesus Camp a couple years ago, and kind of got me started interested in like dominionism, Christian Reconstructionism. I looked at like a lot of Mikey Weinstein stuff and the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so now I'm sort of to the point where I'm looking at like the Joel's Army and sort of all these little groups, and I guess I'm not sure where they fit into the evangelical movement. And kind of how big it is. It scares the crap out of me. And I'm wondering if you could kind of, because I grew up Catholic, but I don't really know the evangelical world at all.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that I can give you a satisfactory answer. What I will tell you is that while I share your concern and I keep an eye out things like Theocracy Watch and other things that are looking out for this, I'm not the slightest bit afraid that the Dominionists are actually ever going to get wrest control. I'm convinced that we have some protections in place and that most of our country is sane enough that when it gets to some point there's going to be a snapback. My point is, why do we need to keep waiting for this? Why do we need to keep waiting for things to get so damn bad that we've got to, do cartwheels to get things back on track? Why can't we just wake up and see what potential harm there is coming down the line? By the way, I have to backtrack to do a slight note because Mark went and looked it up for me. Aristophanes was around 225 BC, and so it wouldn't have predated even the earliest writings we have from Dead Sea Scrolls and stuff. But anyway, yeah, I'm not. We did a couple shows on dominionism.
Yeah, I watched.
I'm not nearly the expert that I probably should be, because I mean this is something that more people are probably going to start asking about. I don't know. Did you want to?
No, I have no opinion on it. I'm not that up on it, actually.
In a way, I'm almost happy. In a way, I'm almost happy that they're out there for the same reason that I'm happy that the Phelps are out there.
That's a very good point. I went to 12 years of Catholic school and came from a family that, I mean, we went every once in a while to church, but we weren't really religious growing up. And now, probably in the past 3 or 4 years, I went from kind of tepid to agnostic / and now I'm into pronouncing my atheism, at least for my family and people who I feel appropriate around.
Good.
But they're to the point now where they don't get annoyed listening to me, and I've kind of turned them to my side a bit, but there's definitely that, like, inaction, like, oh, there's nothing going on, and that is, Fred Phelps is my favorite. I throw him at everyone who thinks that,
he is a good poster child. He is.
I do think there is a lot of people who don't understand and I'm like Matt. I'm not afraid of the movement because I think there are more sane people than not. But I do think that there are more tentacles reaching into government than most of the population gives them credit for. And I think, for example, like there's a lot of people that I just don't even think have a clue that there's anything connected to like school boards. You know, that wouldn't even know that there's an issue with the school board, and we've got people promoting creationism in the school, and they're thinking, oh, you're just some crazy atheist. There is no such thing as that going on. And it's like, well, if they would just take a moment, I mean, you don't have to dig. You
don't even have to leave Texas.
Yeah.
You can take a look at our school board, and there's been plenty of news about this lately, and I know it on the show, but we're in trouble. I'm not going to say we're doomed, but we've got some work to do to fix our state before a handful of young earth creationist bigots kill off education for the next generation.
It's scary, too. I mean, I know people who, in the Catholic Church, I would say, I don't really even know that many. I know my aunt is kind of hardcore about it, but most people I know don't even really know what the Catholic Church has to say about things.
Yeah, including most Catholics.
But so I'll ask her what she thinks about creation versus evolution, and she's willing to say that, I shouldn't talk about other people, I'll say that most people are willing to say that there's a doubt hanging over it is basically my problem. And I don't think that would be happening if it wasn't for that very active fringe. And I don't want to have to see, I'm a relatively new atheist, I'm excited about the ideas, I'm interested, I want to talk about it all the time, blah, blah, blah. So, but I don't want to see myself as like evangelizing, but I don't know.
I do.
Do it.
I do. I fessed up to it. I went and spoke at a class at UT a few weeks ago on journalism and religion, and one of the first questions, one of the questions that came up, wasn't one of the first ones, was, what's the point? Why do you do what you do? And I said, why am I an evangelical atheist? And everybody laughed. And I said, yeah, I'm fine with it. I think that with regard to the creation and evolution thing, and by the way, this is a good time to point out for the people who aren't used to watching the show and don't know that we've said this so many times, that atheism and evolution are not intrinsically tied together. One doesn't necessarily go with another. We just happen to, be right on both counts. There are, however, Christians and other theists who accept evolutionary theory. And here's the thing, maybe if we didn't have presidents going out and saying things like, the jury's still out on evolution, when the jury is so in on evolution, it's absurd.
Well, did you hear him this week? I think he said something about the fact that he does accept evolution, basically, and that he does not take the Bible literally, which I would have loved to hear 8 years ago.
It might have been nice, but, maybe... I don't want to speak to what he's thinking, because my brain can't work that way.
All right, well, thank you so much, and keep on evangelizing. You are making a difference.
Sure. Thanks, Amanda. Thank you, Amanda. Appreciate the call. We're not going to get to any of your stuff. We have like 5 minutes left, and then the phone calls are still coming in, so we're just going to take them. Is it Chris?
Yes, hello.
And you're here in Austin?
I am.
I can barely hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll try to speak
better.
I hear you now.
Okay. I was going to mention, since you were talking about Christian history, that there was just a PBS special. It was a Nova special called The Bible's Buried Secrets. And I watched it online for free. It's about 2 hours long, and it's really quite good.
Is it still available online?
I think it is.
Okay.
This was just like about a month or something ago that they put it on, so I'd like to, recommend that.
I missed it. I had it. I either forgot or had another obligation. I have so much going on. I don't know what the excuse I should use is, but I'm glad it's available online because I was really wanting to watch it. Did you enjoy it? Was there good information?
Yes, I did. It was really quite good. They didn't perhaps fall into some of the traps they could have. They I really think they were pretty fair about it, and there's also some online features, some interviews with the experts, and there's like an interactive feature that I think the man named Friedman did, and it shows you how the different books were meshed together, like for the flood story. I was disappointed that they didn't mention the origins of the flood story. They just talked about the the Jewish books, and it's mainly focuses on Jewish history and like David and Solomon and what have you. But
yeah, they should have grabbed Tracie for the Nova special because she spent a great deal of time covering the various stories that were ripped off from
the borrowed mythologies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and because I've always had, an interest in archaeology, I grew up in a house with a lot of books, and that really helped. That'll really help you give up on religion, let me tell you, the more you learn. And I read a lot of books about archaeology, the Egyptians and the Sumerians and all of that, and I really like seeing them expose the origins of how religion got created, because it really pulls the rug out from underneath it. And this is, it's one good, generally available documentary, so I think people might enjoy watching that.
Well, thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you very much for reminding everybody. And now that the news is out there, I'm sure, by the way, if you go to ironchariots.org, I've got a forum up there where people can post things about atheist experience and nonprofits, although you have to register, and it may take a little while because we're getting rid of spam. And also there are Yahoo groups that you can join at the ACA website. Getting things like this posted in discussions, getting the news and information out, groups on Facebook, kind of spreading the word, posting these videos, letting people know that there's good information out there and good videos. Anytime I get time, I'm happy to watch stuff like that. So I appreciate you calling in to remind everybody about that, Chris.
All right, well, thank you. I just thought it was a very good, accessible special. So you guys have a nice evening.
You too. Thanks very much. We got, is it Carlos?
Yes.
In New York?
Yes, that's right.
How are you? And how's the weather?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you guys doing?
Good.
How's the weather?
It's terrible, I would say, yeah.
See, this is why people are like, what do you like about Austin? All you have to do is, I'm going to ask everybody what the weather's like where they're at when they call in from now on, and you'll know why I like Austin.
Yeah, that's true, yes. I was calling today about the religion that was created by the French guy named Rael. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that.
Yeah, Raelianism.
Exactly. I was wondering what you guys think about it.
I think it's nuts. I don't think there's any more evidence for his religion than for anybody else's religion.
Yes, exactly. But when I was kind of reading a couple of their stuff, and I realized that they kind of think a whole lot like I do. I don't know if you guys have read any of their stuff.
I've read all of their public stuff. I spent some time digging through, and I talked to some people. Well, I don't want to make it sound like I've got insider information. My understanding is that they're more of a free love sex cult than anything.
Okay.
And not that and by the way, I would have to say that usually when I list which religions I find harmful, it's Jainism at the top, but it may in fact be Raelianism if all they're going to do is sit around and have sex and stuff. But we are completely out of time, Carlos. I gotta let you go. I apologize. And Ryan in LA, hang on, we'll get you after the show's over. Thanks everybody for tuning in. There's the crew. Show yourselves. Come on down to Threadgills if you'd like and have lunch with us. I won't be here next week, but Russell will be along with Jen. And the announcement that I skipped until the end is that Jeff D is back in the Atheist Experience rotation for the coming year. Every 5 weeks he'll be on the show. You there?
I'm here.
How you doing?
Hey, good. How's it going? I enjoyed the show.
Thanks.
I don't know. I was going to try and kind of keep it short since I knew you were coming up on the end of the show. But I was going to basically, I'm going to be going home for the holidays here, shortly. And I come from a pretty Christian household. And I haven't really come out of the closet as an atheist, so to speak, to them full on. But, they know that, I'm not going to church on a regular basis.
Right.
And, they kind of have some kind of inkling. But I didn't really want to go into the whole coming out thing just because I think that's kind of, it kind of depends on the person and their family and where they stand with them. But what I'm more curious about is there's one kid in the family, like a little nephew that I have, he's like 5 years old, and so he still is fully believing in Santa Claus. And last year, I kind of went along with the whole thing, and I was like, yeah, I thought I saw him, thought I saw Santa when I got up this morning, and he was really into it. And I don't know, there's just part of me that wonders if I should keep helping to further that illusion, or, should I tell him, Jesus and Santa Claus are just the same kind of thing, so that when that kind of Santa Claus illusion is shattered, maybe the Jesus illusion is shattered a little bit too. I just know that he's being kind of indoctrinated with the religion stuff, and I'd like to maybe kind of put a little glimmer of doubt in his mind, at a young age.
I wouldn't, personally. I've got a niece and nephew that I'm going to be going home to see over the holidays as well. I've already come to terms with all of this and even spoken to my brother, and the thing is, I'm not going to be lying to my niece and nephew if they ask why Uncle Matt doesn't go to church, or I'm going to tell them, and if they ask what I believe, I'm probably going to send them to their dad to let him give the initial explanation, because they're not my kids. I understand what you're doing, what you'd like to do, and on some level I would agree, and I would even share that goal, but I think it's far better to teach your nieces, nephews, cousins, whatever, in a more abstract fashion about how to assess claims to determine whether or not they're real. And that is completely honest. It's not underhanded. It helps them deal with life, and you kind of got to trust that eventually, once they start putting their critical thinking skills